right, welcome to Talking Shop. I think Ernie's going to join us next week. I think he might be back. He's in somewhere, Kansas City. I don't know.
I think you're just a man of hope.
I am a man of hope. Always hopeful Ernie will be back with us. But anyway, we got a good text. It's Matthew chapter 22, 1 through 14. The parable of the wedding feast is what it's usually called. Don't mess with the king, man. The king gets upset. Things go awry. It gets bad.
Could. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. But come celebrate it with us anyway.
Yeah, come celebrate. All right. We'll get after it.
Leave away, spit on my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the arms
Okay.
of the King.
Matthew 22, 1 to 14. It's one parable, but there's kind of two parts to it. And if you thought the first part was awkward, the second part gets even more awkward.
That's true. That's if you
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're uncomfortable for a little bit, then you think it gets good, and then you're really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Yeah, it can be an unsettling text if you leave your people there.
So as we always do when we talk about parables, it's very important to pay attention to what this parable is about, or what kind of parable it is maybe. That it is a parable about the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm. Not a parable about how Matt ought to live his life.
I don't get to celebrate at a feast every day and wear nice clothes?
Well, I mean, you could.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying, but
That's
it's
not what
telling
it is.
us about the kingdom of
Yes,
heaven,
it is.
right?
Yeah.
So that's his point. So it's the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son, right? That's just setting it up. Mm-hmm. And he sends out his servants to let everyone know it's time.
Yeah, to fulfill the RSVPs, right? So
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and again, I think I've done some work on weddings of this time, and the reason why this has to happen is it's not the weddings weren't kind of like ours, where it was like you get engaged and then this is the date on which the wedding will happen.
Okay.
There were plans and preparations that had to happen for the groom. The groom had to get his house in order, and it was the father then that declared that was ready and set.
Now's the time for the feast.
And so the people might know that a wedding is coming,
Okay.
but until the father, in this case the king, actually declares it, it's not happening. And so he's in essence sending the servants out to say, it's time.
It's time.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't before. You knew it was coming, and I think that's kind of helpful in the whole motif of what's going on. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Now it's time.
Yeah, and you know, and they were the invited guests.
And they're the invited guests.
So
Yeah.
they knew it'd be ready, or they were anticipating it, or should have been, and then he finally does it. And they don't come. And a matter of fact, we noticed this in translating it. It's not just that they were otherwise busy.
Yeah, and we even made a statement that the English doesn't say it. They did not fellow in the Greek. They didn't desire.
Yeah.
And
right.
it's crazy to when you actually read it that way.
Yeah.
They didn't desire to come.
Yeah, they had no
They
no
had other
desire.
things they were worried about.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's not like I couldn't get out of work.
Right. It's not like timing was bad for them.
I couldn't get a sitter for the kids.
Yeah.
So
I wish it wouldn't have come up on me so abruptly.
Yeah,
This is
right.
a bad time of year. It was.
So there was no desire on their part to gather in the feast.
Yeah.
So yeah, they wouldn't come. He sends out servants again. This is sort of similar to the tenants in the vineyard, right?
Yeah,
He
which
sends
is
out
what
more
comes
vineyard,
before this
more
one.
servants, right? Sends out more servants. And he lays it out like, look, hey, everything's is really. I'm not kidding, right?
Well, I think kind of enticing them, right? Maybe in this time you forgot.
Yeah.
There's an ox.
Yeah.
There's a fattened calf.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole feast is
It could be
laid
like,
out.
in Southern California, it'd be like, listen, we got a keg, we got we
right.
got tri-tip
That's
on
right.
the grill.
Yeah. Somebody was out at the lobster pots.
Yes,
and they brought in fresh
man. We
lobster.
are ready to go, right? And so, yeah, I like that. It's sort of like this enticing. Come to the feast. This is the feast, right? Here it is.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
Yeah, it was a weird construction. It was like the deniers went away, or so it identifies them as those who were disregarding this good news. So it wasn't just like they could come back with the excuse, "Oh, we didn't know," or you know, they are intentionally like, "Nah, it's not for me."
Yeah.
And they're walking away. So they are openly and adamantly rejecting this call by the king.
Okay, that's a good way to think of it.
And I think in a preaching way, I think that's important to say that.
Focus on
it's not like they are somehow, they just missed it.
Yeah.
They are rejecting
it's very clear.
this call.
Yeah, it's very clear they're rejecting it. And not only do they reject it, there's some of them who, and this does really go back to the parable of the tenants, who mistreat and even kill these servants. And it's almost, it's kind of thrown in there, but this seems to be the heart of the anger of the king in his response.
Yeah.
Right? So some of these guys actually kill the servants.
Yeah, right. And it's not just enough that they reject his call. They actually then show open enmity to his kingdom.
His kingdom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They are now fighting against his people.
Yeah.
And so it's so again you can't see these people as people who are just like, no thanks. I mean, there are levels and levels and levels of their rejection, their open rebellion,
Yes.
their just refusal to have anything to do with the king and his kingdom. So
right, and now this is where if somebody's never heard this before, this is where it kind of gets shocking, right?
Yeah.
So his response, and it's funny when we were translating it, I was thinking to myself that it's that line where that they killed his servants that really you need to. I think in my thinking of this parable, I almost kind of forgot about that part.
Okay.
Like I remembered, they didn't go, but it's not just they didn't go. They willfully denied, like you were saying, but then they kill his own servants.
Yeah.
And this brings out wrath.
Yeah.
So the king sends troops.
Yeah.
And you see, because he calls them the murderers.
Yeah, those murderers, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily, I mean, if you wanted to, you're not going to be able to go there in preaching, but, this isn't the ones who went to their own town and their own.
Yeah.
These aren't the ones who then went out somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, these are the ones who stayed behind and openly rebelled against his kingdom.
Yeah, and he destroys them and burns their cities.
Yeah. God will never again destroy the earth with water. Just leave it there.
Yeah. Burns their cities. So there is ramifications to their open rebellion against the king.
Yeah.
And the spurning of his generosity and the inviting of the feast, all that stuff.
Yep.
And he doesn't just let it go.
Yeah.
Right. At the same time that he won't let that go, he won't let his feast go either.
No.
Like he's still having his
going
feast.
to happen. His son has to get married.
And he will still have guests at that wedding feast.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? So that moves him to do what?
Now he just, in essence, puts out an open invitation.
Yeah.
Come one, come all.
Yeah. First come, first serve.
Yeah. And you get the note. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but down in 10, both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Like he's not discriminating. There's no discrimination at all here. Hey, there's a wedding feast that's happening. You want to be a part of it? Come along.
Come on in. Yeah.
We don't care about your past. We don't care about who you are. We don't care about what's happened to you. Nothing.
Right.
Come on in. There's a wedding feast, and we need guests.
So he fills his wedding hall is filled. And I think it definitely in preaching, I think we would we need to hit on that, both the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
The evil and the good, or however your translation has it. But that it is this very wide-reaching invite.
Yeah,
right?
and if you haven't caught on yet, this is the church, right? This is the invitation of the church.
Yeah.
We don't discriminate about who we proclaim the gospel to.
Right.
The feast is prepared for you,
For you.
whoever you are, whatever you've done, even if I don't like you, because again, it's not my call, it's the king's call.
King,
And
he
has
wants
put
you in.
Open invitation.
I'm a servant to
That's right. Yeah.
make the invitation,
Yeah.
right?
So-
And and so it goes out. And then so that's the first half of it.
Yeah.
And then you get kind of it zooms in on a particular guy, but it sort of retells the same thing, or at least has the same movements of it, right? So the king comes in and he looks, and we were talking earlier, I said I always imagine this, he kind of like walks out on his like balcony or something, and he sees it, and he looks out over the gas, and man, that one dude
Yeah. It sticks out.
sticks out.
Yeah.
There's one guy who is not wearing the wedding clothes.
Yeah, where I come from, it'd say he stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's one guy who's not dressed appropriately.
Yeah. He's not wearing a wedding garment.
Yeah.
It's a wedding feast.
Yeah. Yep.
So he goes right to him.
He goes right to him.
Yeah. Great. And even the language, friend, he says, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he had been invited.
Yeah.
Right? How did you get in without it?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think the reaction of the king is going to be surprising to us again, but I think it's the reaction of the person that causes that reaction of the king.
So kind of like the first half.
So kind of like the first half. So the king comes, I mean, he sees everybody.
Yeah.
He sees this one guy who's not in a wedding garment. He does not immediately go to his servants and say, kick
Toss
that
him
guy out.
Yeah.
He goes to the guy
Yeah.
and says, there's something wrong here. What can be done about it?
Right.
And there's no, it says he's speechless. I think another way could be said, he said nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could go this way, you'd have to go, but it's almost as if he ignores the king's request or interacting with the king.
He's got nothing.
He's got nothing to say.
Yeah, nothing to say.
And so then the king binds him hand and foot and kicks him out.
Kicks him out, yeah. In the outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah.
Bad stuff.
Yeah,
right?
but again, the king is gracious enough to approach him and ask him about the situation, and the guy acts as if it's no big deal, right? So I always say this in my Bible studies. I don't know if you could probably preach on it, but if God would have come to Adam in the garden and when he says, "You were hiding. What did you eat of the fruit?" If Adam and Eve would have stood up and said, "Yeah, we did. Sorry, we
scared the heck
out of us, and we don't know what to do now." What would have been the reaction of God? But it's because Adam comes to him and goes, "It's her. She did it. It's
and
her
she's
fault."
Like, the snake,
yeah,
Lord.
the snake did it. Right? They're trying to get themselves out of it.
Right.
That then you get this reaction of God bringing down the curses. I see that a little bit in this king.
Yeah.
He comes, he tries to address the situation, and because the guy's
that's not a bad
him.
correlation, because you think of that. I've often preached on it and taught about it in Genesis, where when God shows up, right? He's God.
Yeah.
He knows where they are.
Right.
So, but he doesn't show up and go, "What did you do?" Right?
Right.
He shows up and says, "Where are you?"
Yeah,
I mean, it's a gracious thing.
Yeah.
Like, his concern is that these who he loved and created are now hiding from him. This has never happened.
This has not
right?
happened.
And where are you? And it's this pleading of this.
Yeah, and
broken
it's not. He's not asking a question he doesn't know the answer.
It's exactly
to,
right. Yeah.
In the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this king, and we were talking about this where we don't know. There's no historical evidence that a king would provide wedding garments for his guests.
Yeah, that gets talked about this way a lot.
But there's something that happens here where this guy should clearly have a wedding garment and he doesn't.
Yeah, he's not. In other words, he's not punishing him because he's poor and couldn't afford a wedding garment.
Exactly.
Like
there's a way to get him a wedding garment, and this guy is refusing to wear it.
Yeah.
Or refusing whatever that.
And so the image that comes through for preaching, well, verse 14 obviously highlights that this is about the calling of God. This is about election, right? And we see that most clearly in the gifts of holy baptism, right? Where you literally put on Jesus Christ, like you are clothed in Him. Like all that language comes through with this death and new birth in our Lord, and so that entry into the wedding feast, this invitation, it's like you're wearing. Like you're at the feast, you're gonna wear the wedding garments because that's how you got there, kind of thing, right?
Right. And if the king has called you to the wedding, then he also has the ability to make you worthy, right?
Yeah.
And to make you worthy to be there,
and he doesn't say this was one of the bad ones,
right?
It's just it was one of them, though.
It's just one of them,
right?
Who's not in a wedding garment, and again, we don't know the situation, but what we do know is that there are ways around that situation, right? In other words, if the guy would have looked at the king and said, I couldn't afford it, right? Then the king calls his servants over and is like, get this guy a wedding garment, right? Or if he says, I forgot it at home, and oh, well, we got spares, right? There's ways
and
around
so this is a retelling of the first part where it was this general, and you can kind of see, I think some people speak of like the first part is this is Israel and here it is, the feast is ready and they wouldn't come, right? And then they killed the servants and those things, and now there's this gift that comes out in the work of Christ, and there will still be those who will reject that or spurn that gift, right? That Christ is going to clothe you. He's going to welcome you in, the good and the bad, right? He's the one who eats with sinners. They're brought into the wedding feast, and there's still those who will reject that gift.
And you could even go, I mean, you can see this in Israel. I don't know if you'd want to preach on this or not, but in Israel, they were worthy because of who they were, right? God had already made them that way. So these are the invited guests.
The invited guests,
right? The others, then God is making worthy. He's going to make them into who they're supposed to be. And here's this one guy who walks in and goes, "No, I'm good on my own.
I'm good. I got it."
Well, I don't need you to remake me or put anything on me or do anything. I'm good just as I am.
Right.
And the reality is that when you're faced with the kingdom of God, it is always going to change you. And to reject that change from the kingdom is just like rejecting the invitation of the king.
That's good. Man, that's a good, and so preaching this text, is then it's not going to be about how to get your garment, right?
Right. No.
Or even how to secure your invite,
right?
But rather, again, this is the working of the kingdom. He is doing this.
Yeah.
He's doing it now.
Yeah. The preaching on this is remembering and being reminded of the benevolence of our ruler.
Yes.
Who came out and found us in whatever situation we were and made us worthy to attend the marriage feast of his son in his kingdom.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. That was great. Go to craftofpreaching.com. There's more resources. You'll find an essay certainly on this one, but some of the other texts for that Sunday. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Give Ernie a shout out. Hopefully we'll see him next week.
Yeah, he needs your love.
He does need your love. God bless your preaching.